The province of Quebec is the heart of Canada's still legal and thriving asbestos industry. The state of Maine borders Quebec, so it is not surprising to find that there is a great deal of naturally occurring asbestos deposits in the western region where Maine borders Quebec and northern New Hampshire. Despite the fact that Maine has been settled for well over 2 centuries, the location of these asbestos deposits is in a part of the state that is very lightly inhabited. The only major highway in the region is SR 27, which skirts the northwestern edge of this area along the shores of Chain Lakes. 3 other naturally occurring asbestos deposits have been identified by the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. One of these is close to the state's eastern border with New Brunswick in the vicinity of Fort Fairfield. The other 2 are located along Maine's rugged east coast on the peninsula separating Penobscot Bay from Blue Bay. Unnatural occurrences. Maine has an abundance of older and historic buildings. Most of these have asbestos issues. One such restoration in the town of Hallowell came to local media attention in 2007 when the company in charge of renovations for the historic 175-year-old Worcester House failed to notify the State Department of Environmental Quality and used uncertified personnel for asbestos abatement. Hallowell House LLC incurred a substantial fine for the violation. It is worth pointing out that Maine, like New Hampshire and Vermont, takes its environmental laws quite seriously, and this includes matters in which asbestos is involved. Violators of the state's asbestos regulations face stiff penalties. There are, in fact, 84 different job sites and public buildings listed where asbestos has been a problem. These include not only the usual suspects, paper mills, power generation plants, iron foundries, shipyards, and military installations, but numerous school buildings, warehouses, and ironically, a number of hospitals. Specific industries. A recent study carried out at the National Cancer Institute showed that workers employed in shipbuilding facilities face elevated risks from asbestos disease. This study followed 4,700 subjects who had been employed at a Coast Guard facility in Maryland between 1950 and 1963. There was a small but significant increase in the mortality rate due to asbestos between this group and the general population. Maine also has a number of power plants, both fossil-fueled and hydroelectric. Asbestos insulation and packing abounds throughout all power generation facilities, and a recent Puerto Rican study showed that workers in these facilities face a substantially higher risk of asbestos disease. 13% of chest x-rays taken of the workers in this study showed some kind of anomaly. The paper industry makes up yet another prominent sector of Maine's economy due to its abundant forest resources. Many asbestos disease victims were employed at paper mills. In more than one case, family members were also affected because of fibers brought home on clothing or in the hair. Specific towns and cities in which these industries could be found include Auburn, Bangor, Portland, and Presque Isle. Mortality. Maine is a small state in terms of population. Between 1980 and 2000, there was an increase from 1.12 to 1.2.7 million people. During that time, 387 people died from asbestos poisoning. Maine is unusual in that deaths due to asbestosis were far more common than those due to mesothelioma. Although the latter is a relatively rare condition, it is invariably fatal. Asbestosis, on the other hand, is treatable when diagnosed early. Unlike mesothelioma, it is neither progressive nor malignant. The disease stops progressing once the patient is removed from the asbestos environment. Legal resources in Maine. The state of Maine has not seen a significant amount of mesothelioma litigation. However, it is the home to several companies that have been defendants in nationwide asbestos-related cases, and cases have been filed in Maine against these specific defendants as well. For individuals, the good news in the state is that Maine has a much more lenient statute of limitations on personal injury lawsuits than most other states, with a 6-year general statute of limitations. One of the major companies in Maine to be regularly involved in asbestos-related litigation has been Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. This company was sued by thousands of people in a number of different states beginning in 2002. The lawsuits have principally been based on claims relating to certain research, publication, and other activities of MetLife's employees from the 1920s through the 1950s. Many suits allege that MetLife learned or should have learned of certain health hazards posed by asbestos, and also allege that, among other things, MetLife improperly publicized or at times failed to disclose those health risks. A search through the Maine Federal District Court cases for asbestos-related personal injury lawsuits brings up a list of 3 2006 lawsuits in which the defendant is Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. The only case in Maine relating to asbestos listed on the online records for the First District Court was an appeal by the defendant in a personal injury suit. In 1991, the plaintiff in the suit had filed for and won medical benefits due to exposure to asbestos dust. In 1995, when the defendant filed for full disability benefits, the lower court found that the plaintiff had suffered additional exposure while the defendant was self-insured, and therefore ruled that the responsibility for the payments belonged to the company rather than an insurance company. The defendant appealed that ruling in 2001, but the First District Court upheld the lower court's decision. It should be noted that the appeal was not an attempt to deny the plaintiff's right to receive disability compensation, but only about whether it was the company or their insurer who had to pay. In addition to these lawsuits, potential mesothelioma cases may eventually arise from asbestos exposure at Maine's Superfund sites. Sites of concern in Maine include Brunswick Naval Air Station, between Brunswick and Bath, Union Chemical Corporation in South Hope, and Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Kittery. Asbestos contamination was found at these 3 sites. Individuals living or working near these areas should be checked regularly for signs of mesothelioma in order to file any lawsuits within the state's statute of limitations. Those interested in filing lawsuits should know that the statute of limitations for personal injury law in Maine is 6 years with a discovery rule that states that this amount of time begins when the problem, in this case mesothelioma, either was discovered or should have been discovered. There is no specific statute about asbestos. It should be noted that wrongful death cases are limited to a 2-year statute of limitations following the same discovery rule.
Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information. Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.Net, to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.Net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.Net, information and help for patients and families.